morning again. Go ahead and pull your note sheet out if you would. If you're brand new with us, we are a note-taking church. If you did not receive an outline when you came in, you can lift your hands up right now. The service hosts are going to pass those around. Make sure you have something to follow along with. As that's happening, let me draw your attention to the hot sheet there. I want you to turn it over before we dive in here. Just heard a little bit about our birthday. We've got these invitation cards. Don't stop believing. You can pick these up out in the lobby. I want you to invite someone to be with us. That's in 2 weeks. We'll be celebrating 39 years of miracles. Excited about that. Also, for those even online, you're here, you've been wanting to find out how to be a part, a real part, not just an attender, but a part of a life-giving church. It will impact God's house, will bless your house if you allow it. If you'd like to be a part of that, Next Steps is happening. This is our first, we've been doing Next Steps online for so long, but this is going to be our first back in-person Next Steps in our Next Steps room. That is kicking off next week at our 11 o'clock time. So, and then you can look on there for some other things. Flip it over. And let's jump into today's message, talking about 3 words that we have to understand to grasp and to really comprehend what Christianity is all about. Now, I've asked you for 2 weeks now, and even online, to write down 3 words that you would use, 2 or 3 words that you would use to describe Christianity to someone else. We've heard words like love, grace, faith, heaven, all kind of things. But I want us to look at what Paul said when he was explaining the Christian faith to a governor and his princess, okay? We're in Acts 24. It says, after some days, when Felix came, for those who are new with us, anytime the scripture's up there, I want to encourage you to read it out loud with me. After some days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, that's the governor and the princess, who was Jewish, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith. Brings Paul out of prison. Paul's in prison right now, and he brings this famous prisoner before him and says, tell me about Christianity. Let's pick it up, verse 25. Now, as he reasoned about, here's the 3 words, righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix became uncomfortable, a little afraid. We've been unpacking these 3 words the past 3 weeks. What in the world does Christianity have to do with righteousness? What in the world does Christianity have anything to do with self-control? And can it help me with self-control? We talked about that last week. I want to dive into this word, judgment to come. Wild applause. Aren't you glad you came to church? Aren't you glad you're tuning in? Judgment to come. What an exciting subject. Someone asked the renowned theologian R.C. Sproul, which Christian doctrine do you struggle with the most? And he simply replied, hell. This is a uncomfortable, we might say subject, uncomfortable for me, maybe uncomfortable for you. But we have to deal with it. We have to talk about it. I want you to relax, and as much as possible, I'm just going to teach and just reason with you. It said Paul reasoned with them. He reasoned with them. You can disagree with me. I'm just going to reason with you. Righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come. 2 questions there in your notes. Let's just jump into it. Number 1, why is there a judgment to come? Let me suggest to you there must be a judgment to come because God is just. The foundation of this idea is that God is just. What are you talking about, Pastor Charlie? Well, there's a lot of wrong things that happen in our world. There's a lot of injustices. Come on, are you here? There's a lot of things that happen that should not happen, and it's just wrong. And so if God is just, if he is just, then he must come back and fix the things that are wrong. So there must be a day when he's going to make everything right. The foundation of this idea that judgment comes, I just want you to get it, is God's justice. Immediately I thought about one of our founding fathers in this country. In fact, if you go see one of my favorite memorials in D.C., the Jefferson Memorial, and you can look up and read his words, you'll find these words from him. Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect, when I think about what? That God, that's in your notes, by the way. You can look at it. You can try. That God is what? God is just. And look at the second part that he said, reasoning with you. That his what? His justice cannot what? There must be a day. Just can't sleep on forever because that would be unjust. God's not unjust, he's just. So there must be a day. Must be a day. By the way, you can jot this down. There's Romans 12 and 9. It's not going to be up there, but I thought of this just right before I came out here. Paul said, never avenge yourself. Leave it to the avengers. No, he didn't say that. He said, never avenge yourself. Leave it to God. Because the scriptures say, vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. So Christians have this underlying, just even in the midst of the most horrific injustices and wickedness and atrocities, we have this undergirding foundation from which we live, that the Lord one day is going to make all things right. Okay, question number 2. Wow, we're going quick, Pastor Charlie. Well, we're going to slow down just a bit, but we're just setting the stage right now. Question number 2. We have why, God's just, so, okay. What is the judgment to come? Again, I'm going to ask you to write in. You're going to have to write this in. It's not in your notes. I finished this Thursday night late, and when I got here, I wanted to add something to what is judgment to come, okay? What you have there is, even those online, what you have there is, I'll suggest, a little too narrow. I want to give you an idea of judgment to come when I was thinking about this morning. Here's the big picture. What is judgment to come? By the way, you're going to have to write this. This is in your notes. It's when God brings complete and total justice. What are you talking about, Pastor Charlie? It's when he restores, I love that. It's when he restores all things and makes all things right. The judgment to come. It's when he what? What's the word? Restores. Some things, all things, and makes all things complete and total justice. Only God can give that. We here try our best to have justice. It's always not perfect, it's incomplete, but God will bring perfect and complete justice. How do you describe that? Well, the prophets of old try their best. Revelation, the end of this book, tries its best. It says it'll be a time when he wipes away every tear. Revelations 21:4, death will be no more. Pastor Charlie, what would that look like? No mourning, that's no grieving, no crying, no pain. The entire world system will be done away with, and there'll be a new order. The judgment that comes when God makes restitution and restores. That's hard for us to believe. God, he's just, restores all things. It also means, in your notes, now we're back in your notes, it also means that the judgment, Pastor Charlie, I didn't know you were serious about us taking notes. Yeah. You're really going to follow along. It also means the judgment to come is when God separates people into two groups. Those who will be brought into his kingdom. He's a king, and he has a kingdom. All kind of names for this kingdom. Heaven, you've heard that. Eternal blessedness, we go on and on. Eternal rest. God restores Eden, paradise, on and on. And those who will be cast out of his kingdom. All kind of words for this in Scripture. Hades, Gehenna. A lot of our Bibles translate this word hell, torment. Seriously, this is the 21st century. We have science. How can you still are you teaching something so barbaric? Well, there's a problem. There's a problem we have to deal with if we're intellectually honest, and this might be the last place in the earth where people can actually think. I want you to think. This is God's house. He gave us minds. That's why I'm reasoning with you. Think. Think. The problem is, here's the problem, is that Jesus talked about, the latte drinking, long hair, hippie, robe wearing, peace loving Jesus. That one. He said things. Jesus talked about the judgment to come more than any other person in Scripture. So if we're going to take Jesus seriously, which a lot of people love Jesus, I don't know what they mean, but love Jesus. Okay, well, let's take what he said just for a moment. Let's pretend that he knew something, that he was actually teaching us something about reality. Okay, let's dive in here. I put a bunch of examples in your notes. This is a little unusual. We're going to read quite a bit of Scripture. This is Jesus. This is Luke 16, starting in verse 19. Again, it's quite a bit. There was a rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously on Christmas and Easter. Nope. You with me? I'm going to get no amens on the message for the judgment to come. That's okay, I understand. Who feasted sumptuously every day. This is Jesus telling us a story. And at his gate was laid a poor man named, now he's getting ready to describe Lazarus to us, but I want you to, this jumped out at me, this phrase, at his gate. Where was Lazarus laid? At his door. Let's take Lazarus. We know somebody in the city has the resources and means that could probably help him. Let's lay him there. Come on, say at his gate. So the rich man saw him daily. At his gate was laid a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who desired, he wanted to be fed, didn't need to sit at the table, just what fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, now we're reaching a climactic part. Jesus is just an amazing teacher. Moreover, even the dogs came and licked his sores. Now, in the first century, dog is not, man's best friend, especially for the Jews. This is the height of indignity. The rich man could have maybe cleaned his wounds and sores and put a bandage on them, but the most outcast of all, the dogs, even the dogs were more merciful. Licked his wounds. 22, the poor man died. Let's look what happens. The poor man died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's side. Now look at the contrast between the deaths here. Poor man dies, angels show up, carry him. The rich man also died and was buried. Buried. Verse 23. And in Hades, there's that word, the place of the dead. Here's an interesting phrase here. Not just a place of the dead. You know, we're going to party, have a big time. At least that's what the songs tell me. Jesus thought something else. In Hades, being in torment. Now you're going to have to deal with that. I'm just reading what. Being in torment, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus at his side. He called out, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. The one who was merciless is now asking for what? Mercy. Also, I want you just to notice that just being a son of Abraham didn't mean that the angels carried him away to heaven. Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish in this flame. Now, we don't want to push the story too far and make it so literal, but there are points getting across here. Pastor Charlie, actual flames, actual this. Well, can you imagine just being in such torment that you dip your finger in water and just put it on? I could just get a drop. I'm in anguish. Verse 25, but Abraham said, child, remember that you in your lifetime received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been what? Fixed. No going back and forth. This is now a fixed state. No one can come from here to there, and you can't come to here. Verse 27. You with me? This begins the second part of the story. Rich man realized, I'm not going to be able to get out of here. And he said, then I beg you, Father, to send, that's Lazarus, to my father's house. For I have, how many brothers? I have 5 brothers. So that he may, that word warn is to witness, to testify, say something. He may warn them, lest they also come into this place of torment. But Abraham said, I consider his words, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. It's fascinating to me. They have the scriptures. Everything Moses and the prophets and the apostles have witnessed and testified for generations to come. Every pastor and preacher that stood up and preached and preached and preached, let them hear them. He said, no, Abraham. Look how he reasons. But if someone goes to them from the dead, they will what? They will repent. I would mark that word because repentance is really the issue. Repentance. Rich man doesn't go to Hades because he's rich. How much you make has nothing to do with whether you go to heaven or Hades. Come on, you hear I'm reasoning with you. It's the issue of repentance. Every day you had an opportunity to show mercy and you did not change your life, which begins with changing your thinking. And someone needs to challenge your thinking. You're in a good place to have your thinking challenged in God's house. Well, my God, I've been living a certain way. Lord, help me. Help me to repent. How ironic. Abraham, if someone comes from the dead, rises from the dead, certainly they'll believe then. Look at 31. He said to him, if they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone should rise from the dead. The truth is, you don't have to know what you can know. You can sit there I'll say it again. We can sit there in willful stubbornness. If someone rises from the dead, then they'll believe. Isn't that ironic? Someone did rise from the dead. And we have witnesses to his life and resurrection that we have to deal with. Won't you hear them? No, it's not a miracle that you need or a sign that you need. It's a heart of repentance that will allow us to see. We cannot read the messages of Jesus without constantly coming over this idea that there is a future to come. Jesus told the story there in your notes of another man whose field yielded great crops. And he thought to himself, he said, my barns are already full. What am I going to do with all this bumper crops and stuff I have? I already have everything I need. Let's pick it up. This is what Jesus said. This is Luke 12. He said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build what? Bigger ones. And then I'll store up a what? Surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. I have plenty saved away. I've provided for myself. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. This is Jesus, though, telling the story. But God said, you're a fool. This very night your life will be demanded of you. Then who will get the things for which you have prepared? And look what Jesus summarizes this story by. This is how, is it up there? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves and refuses to be rich toward God. Jesus told a story of another man that was going on a long journey. He would be away for a long time. You getting the picture? Sounds like something, right? Going away for a long time, and to one servant of his he gave 1 talent, and to another servant of his he gave 2 talents, to another servant he gave 5 talents. This was money, bags of gold, 1 bag of gold, 2 bags of gold, 5 bags of gold. And then he said after a long time he came back and he called the servants to give an account. And he said, what did you do with the 5 talents I gave you? And the one servant said, I took the 5 talents and I worked real hard and I tried my best and I earned 5 more talents. Here's 10 talents. And the owner said, wow, well done, good and faithful servant. I gave you 5 and you made a profit. That's fabulous. Enter into the joy of rest. How about you with 2? He said, Lord, I took the 2 and I made 2 more. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy, eternal rest. How about you with the 1? What'd you do? He said, Lord, I was so afraid. I was so afraid. I knew that you would come back one day and I didn't want to have anything to give you, so I buried my talent. And then you're here. I went and found it and I unburied it. And here it is. Here's your 1 talent. And Jesus said, the owner said, you wicked. Listen to the words here. You wicked and lazy servant. Look at these words, 25 and 30. Throw that what? Throw that worthless servant outside into darkness. Well, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 25. Again, we could just go on. Jesus tells the story. When the Son of Man comes in all of his glory, and he sits upon his glorious throne, the angels will gather together all the people of the world, and he will separate people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He goes on to tell the story. You know the story well. On his right hand, he'll put the sheep, and he'll say, enter into the joy of your rest that's been prepared for you since the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to drink, something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a foreigner and a stranger, and you invited me in. And I was in prison, and you came and visited me. And I was in a hospital, and you came to see how I was. And he said, the righteous will say, Lord, we never saw you thirsty. We never saw you in prison. We never saw you hungry. We never saw you sick. We never saw you in prison. And Jesus said, and as much as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. Enter into the joy of your rest. But to those on his left, the goats, he will say, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting darkness prepared for the devil and his angels, for I was sick. And you didn't have any time to come visit me. I was hungry, thirsty, didn't give me anything to drink, and I was in prison. You never sent me a note. You forgot about me. And they'll say, Lord, we never saw you in prison. I mean, come on, we never saw you thirsty. We never saw you this. And then Jesus said, and as much as you have not done it to the least of these, you have not done it. What? To me. To me. In your notes, preparing for our future. Wow. My real future, preparing for my future. Here's some quick thoughts. Number 1, this life, I want you to hear it. It's not YOLO. This life is not all there is. We will stand before the Lord to give an account. Explain all that. Maybe you ask Charlie, I can't. We will give an account for the lives that we have lived. Number 2, how we treat one another seems to be a big deal. Especially how we treat the least, the last, and the lost. Especially when they're right in front of us. Especially when they're laying at our door. Number 3, what we do with our resources, it matters. Am I being rich toward the things? Lord, am I being rich towards you? You know, that's one of the main driving dreams of this church. You've heard me share it. I'm going to share it again at our birthday. But for us to be the largest philanthropic organization in the entire DMV area. Out giving, out serving, every organization there is. Well, Pastor Charlie, where's that come from? Well, You know, we live in one of the wealthiest places really in the entire world. So why shouldn't we be doing the most? Why shouldn't community church be helping hundreds of some of the poorest kids in the world? Which we do. But we should. Come on. Amen? Amen. Amen. Lord, help this church just to be a spring of good works. It would blow people away. What? Our light shining. Number 4, repentance. There's no way around repentance. 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 You know what one of the main themes of Jesus' preaching was? And he was a preacher and a teacher. I'll read it to you. Since you just... John the Baptist, who came right before Jesus. John the Baptist, his message was what all the prophets and apostles have basically preached. What is that, Pastor Charlie? Repent. Repent. You're walking this way. Turn around. Let's start walking this way. John the Baptist had just been put into prison. He's getting ready to get his head taken off. He doesn't know it. He's just in chains. That's Jesus' cousin. He's now in prison. So Jesus begins to take up his ministry now. John's in prison. He steps in to the scene. Look at Matthew 4:12. From that time, I just told you what the time was. From that time on, Jesus began to preach what? Repent. Repent. My kingdom is coming. And it's available for those right now. You don't have to wait for it. It's coming in the future, but you can begin to walk in the benefits of my kingdom right now. It happens through repentance. Number 5, everything needed for someone to believe and repent has already been provided in Scriptures. Let me ask you, what proof do you need? What sign do you need? I'm going to sit here in my intellectual honesty. If this would happen, and yet all of creation lies around you, as if it weren't a sign. I heard one brother say, if someone would walk on water, by the way, someone did walk on water, but if I could just see someone walk on water, how about the existence of water itself? Here's some questions. Is your house in order? Pastor, what do you mean by that? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just very simple. To meet the Lord. Are you prepared? Here's the crazy thing, and this is the good news. Lastly, number 6. In, through, by, because of Christ, we can have total, absolute peace. About our future. Absolutely secure. I want you to think about that just for a moment as we close. God is what? We started off with what? God is what? Come on, Hema. God is just. I'm not going to heaven, Pastor Charlie, I'm not going to heaven because I deserve it. I'm not going to heaven because I earned it or I deserve it. No, that would be wrong. That would be unjust for me to go to heaven, because I know the things I have done. Not just done, but thought, the motivations of my heart. That wouldn't be right. And God's just. But this just God so loved the world that he sent his Son, who paid the price for me and for you. The just for the unjust. The righteous died for the unrighteous. And Lord, I have access to heaven. My future is secure based on the all-sufficient merit of someone else, the Son of God. Come on. Have you received Christ? Have you accepted him in your life, in your heart? Unreservedly, Lord, you're my salvation. The all-sufficient merit of, Lord, what you've done for me. And so God is just, and he is the justifier of all who come to him through his Son. God so loved the world, oh, I've been waiting to say this, that he gave his only Son. Whoever believes in him shall not what? Perish, but have what? Everlasting life. God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world as the judge. But he sent his Son into the world that the world might be what? Saved through. Saved through him. Come on, let's bow our heads. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come on. Have you accepted the gift of God? He loves you. He's proven it. Won't you love him? Won't you respond? Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for being better than we could have imagined, thought. Couldn't make this stuff up. Lord, you made a way where there was no way. And now I live my life, Lord, in complete rest and peace that you've done on our behalf. And Lord, you show me a better way to live. I just thank you for it, God. Lord, I pray for each person in the sound of my voice. May today be a day of turning, Lord. May today be a miracle Sunday, Lord. Those watching online, Lord, may it be a day of opening up again, Lord, of returning to the source of our life and strength and peace. Come on, in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name.
What a great service. Amazing music, an incredible sermon. Perhaps something in today's service moved you and you're ready to take a next step in your faith. Did you make a commitment to follow Christ? Maybe you even clicked that small hand emoji on the Church Online platform. You know, taking that next step to follow Christ is as simple as praying and saying yes. Yes to God's love and God's forgiveness. You can take a moment right now and pray that prayer in whatever words you choose. But don't wait another moment. Invite God's love into your life. We want to support you in whatever decision you've made today, so please text the word CONNECT to our church phone number, and someone from our ministry team will reach out to you soon. We also want to thank you for partnering with us financially. If you'd like to give, it's as simple as texting the word give to our church phone number. Don't forget to join us next week a few minutes early so that we can chat and catch up and even share some surprises. See you guys next week.